Hello, this is Falling from Team Liquid. This video is going to be about harassment generally, but more specifically a little bit about the Oracle, but mostly about the Reaver and the Collosus, and how unit design sort of leads to either more micro back and forth or just more A move and death mode. So one thing to note is just the burst damage from before that I was talking about, and that allows us to do this sort of attack retreat with hold position, is because in between you get your full damage off and then you're able to move back without losing any damage. And the advantage of hold position is that if you misclick, you're not going to go running into the Marine group. And this is kind of like a Stalker micro versus Marine in the early game. Again, Stalkers have the sort of burst damage, and they can attack, then retreat, attack, retreat against the Marines. And that's a really good sort of micro in units. And until things like Concussive Shell comes out. And it's much faster sort of micro than even a Blink. So I'm going to speed this up. I'm going to use that as a comparison for some of our others to 1906. Now, I had done this entire game with my brother, set it all up so that we can go from one demonstration to the next, and then the replay bugged, so I ended up just redoing it again against the computer, and so just containing it so I don't have to worry about it, because I'm not good enough to deal with that and then talk over top. Alright, almost there. Alright, here we go, fastest. No, a little bit faster. So the first thing is the Oracle. And this is my stand-in, just the shuttle coming in as the Oracle. And so it comes in, you shift-click and entomb the entire mineral line, and then get out. And then on the streams you see, they hardly even pay attention to this. They immediately go back to their base to build stuff. So that tells me that it's not the most interesting harass option in the world. And people are talking about to fix it, to make it harder, is to make it so you have to individually entomb these, and that will make it harder. But I don't know that this entomb will actually ever be an interesting harass option, because this will be harder, but just in an annoying sense, and because you're not actually reacting against each other unless you're actually trying to shoot down the Oracle, which is about the same as trying to shoot down the medevac, which is only part of the reaction back and forth, the interaction back and forth, compared to once the Marines are on the ground having to deal with them. But what you are interacting with is you're sending the unit in and attacking the ground, not the units. You're attacking something that's not going to move ever. You're never going to be able to pull it as away. You're not going to miss it, as far as I know. It's just always going to be there. It's stationary. And then, similarly, the workers or whatever's going to destroy the tomb isn't actually reacting against the player. They're just acting again against the ground. So, mobile unit in attacks stationary thing, and mobile unit is attacking stationary. So all the focus is on not reacting against each other, but against the ground. And that's, I think, part of the reason why it's not a very interesting option. And to try and to highlight the difference, just to compare it to Storm, which unfortunately Storm Drop is not nearly as common in StarCraft 2, and I think that's really worth looking at on Blizzard's part, why that it's not the case. But this is actually a fairly limited harass option, in that you can only attack units or workers and never buildings. But it's a very dynamic reaction going on here, and that so I can come in and they don't notice me and storm, Or I can muff the storm and hit it so there are not very many workers, or they see me when the shuttle's coming in and they just pull their workers and then they just run away. But I can also notice that they're running away, and maybe instead of dropping it off here, I drop it off over here, and as they're running up the ramp, I can storm it, so there's sort of the predictive element to it. And so I'm storming, and then maybe I'll storm the reinforcements, and then get away. And so that's actually part of the reason why, if you're thinking in a modern RTS, why you still have workers in like 2010, is because there's an interesting dynamic of destroying workers and trying to run workers away, predicting where they're going to run away, and that's part of what makes harass units interesting, more than just attacking the ground, which will never move. And so I'm doubtful the Oracle will see much of anything unless, you know, blue things on minerals. Blue. I don't know. You could cheer for that. You could do it. Now I'm going to speed ahead to 1906. No, 2035. So here it comes, and what I'm wanting to show here is just so it's 100 damage each go around, but notice the time in between each attack. So it's huge damage, and I'm going to lose it because I'm just awful. But I want to just compare that. So that's that burst damage I was talking about before. But you'll notice this is actually a very slow music unit, so it's only got half of what we would need for a really microable unit, which I was talking about. Need that speed to get off the attack or back on the attack, and then the burst damage, so you're not wasting attack in between. So I just want to show that in comparison to the Collosus, wherever that is. Here it is. So here we have our Collosus, and it's going to attack. So Collosus is got. So notice just how fast this damage is, or I should say the attack is, in between. There's not a lot of space in between. Not only that, but the attack animation is actually really long. So it's burst damage, but it goes so fast it might as well, it's very close to continuous fire, which means if you back up, yeah, you can micro it and back up, but you're losing damage. Not only that, so you can do a pickup, you know. But if you ever do this sort of thing, and I am going to show Morrow's video because he's much better at this sort of thing, he's kind of demonstrating this. But the actual attack, people often talk about how sort of strong the Colossus is and how much damage it does, and it actually does, but it doesn't do a lot of front-end damage. Like, it does 30, which actually doesn't kill anything outright. And it's a really fast attack, so it actually lends itself more to sitting in one place for a much longer period of time to actually be able to kill something. Not only that, but its attack is sort of what non-directional, sort of this arc or a line, but there's no sort of focus or direction to it. So you can do this sort of thing, but its natural, most effective way of using it is you're losing a lot of time or damage when you aren't letting it just fire, and so the Reaver was huge on harass, and you rarely see Colossus, and again that's another thing to look at in Brood War. Why is that? Partly I'd say it's burst damage. It's not very worth it to sort of constantly do this sort of, and you could do sort of keep the War Prism on the move. But there's also probably the cost of it, 600, well, no, 300, 200, and but that's partly just because of its mobility. It's just crazy mobility for the sort of unit it is, and it just kind of ignores terrain, and does a lot of damage over time. So it does a lot of damage. It does tons of damage, but because of its fast rate of fire, that's what gives it its damage. as opposed to its initial front-end damage. And that sort of tends to make us more want to keep it in one spot and doing a bunch of damage over and over, and then slowly back it up compared to really fast micro. So I'm going to try and, hopefully I'm not going to run out of time, stupid YouTube. I'm going to speed this up to 24. 24. Just to kind of show how this burst damage, what difference that makes in actual battles. Okay. I messed up a few times because I'm terrible. Alright, here we go. So we're on fastest, we're moving in, and we drop it off, and again, it does 100 damage. And so here's kind of how Reaver Micro works. So basically, you come in with your shuttle and wireframe drop the Reaver, and then select them both, and then right-click on whatever target you want to do. The shuttle will keep on flying, and the Reaver will move up and then attack. And then you don't want the Reaver to get, or the shuttle to get too far ahead, or it'll get hit. So then you, with your hotkey, select the shuttle and then move it back, because you want to keep it moving, because it's got slow acceleration time. You want to keep it in the air, flying as much as possible. Then as it moves fast, or past, you're going to select the Reaver and then hit R a bunch of times to create Scarab, which is probably something you'd never get in StarCraft 2, but everything else I think would be applicable. And then as the shuttle flies over top, you just right-click on it and pop it in. And so, and that's what Reaver Micro is. And it's worth it to do this sort of thing because of the front-end damage, the time in between, that it's 200, 100, so it's not too bad, and it doesn't get sniped by air units. And yeah, it has tremendous limitations in mobility, but this is what gives it its mobility. And so you can pick it up and drop it in one area, and then we can drop it down in another area, so we're going to drop it there. And so I aimed for one SCV. It's not the best place. If I find another place where it has it's kind of splash damage, and you can just kind of circle it around. And so here's another thing, and that has to do with directional damage. So Collosus, it only has sort of this big arc and no focus to it. The Reaver, if I attack this front guy, he'll die. But if I attacked this guy back here, it always splashes back, so it actually damage and probably destroy all these guys. So that actually gives us goals or targets of things that are more ideal to hit rather than just sort of hit everything in a line. I can find a group of units rather than getting the one and get the big group and splash back. And it works the same. I'm just going to unpause there. And you can get in and out just because we kept it going fast. So something like this, we could hit the supply depot here and it'll splash back to those two. And so so you can hit it and just keep on moving it around, keep up the speed, pick it up. And of course I'm much slower at it, and I'm going to link a video of Noni, I guess it's Nuni, I always pronounce it wrong, of doing this in an actual game, so you don't actually have to watch me be really terrible. So I'm just going to stop there. Hopefully that's under our time limit.